Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm delighted to be here with all of you. And I think it's important to note that, anybody who can't fit in the back row, which is the most popular row, there's plenty of room up here and some very courageous souls who are sitting here already. How many of you completed the assessment that was sent out before this program? Nobody. Well, then it doesn't matter. Then I'm just going to go ahead, since we're running late anyway. We will fly by that part of the presentation and go right into the rest of it. So, understanding what your strengths are is what is very important, and most of you probably have a sense. If I asked you what your top 3 strengths are that you use in your schooling or in your work, you could probably tell me what they are. I want you to be thinking about those strengths, because the most important thing is to let your strengths be known and to get the recognition that you deserve for those strengths, which can be tricky. Okay. So, this is what we were going to do if you had done and received the survey. Did you receive an email about the survey or anything? Interesting. Okay, this would have been fun, but we don't have time for it anyway. So just know that your strengths that you've known. How many of you are students? And how many of you are working? Okay. And my understanding is that you are somewhere in the first few years of your career. Is that correct? Okay, we've got that right. Come on, there's plenty of room. So here's what we're going to be talking about. Women have trouble getting the recognition they deserve. Women have trouble because we're told from the time we're little that it is inappropriate to brag, right? You've been told that you shouldn't call attention to yourself. It's even hard for us to take a compliment. Like, if you said to me, "I really like your dress," my initial response, my knee-jerk reaction would be to say, "Oh, this old thing, do you think it makes me look fat?" We deflect compliments. We have real trouble taking credit. And that's why women are such great team leaders, because we normally give credit to the team. Well, it's important to also own the credit for the things that we do. And this is not going to be a presentation that blasts men. I want to say that right now. But what I'm going to talk about are strategies that apply to everyone, even though the examples I give and the studies I cite are going to be about women. Okay? I realized early in my career there was a very small incident that resonated for me early in my career when I first realized that I was going to be judged on more than my results. I happened to be in my very first job after school. After school, I graduated from school. I was walking down a hallway. There was a man walking toward me in the other direction. We were the only 2 people in the hallway. I knew he was a director. I was, a new hire with, I was a technical writer. That's what I was hired to be. And as we walked toward each other, I must have been concentrating on something, because all of a sudden he said to me, "Smile." And what do you think I did? as we walked by each other. He continued on his way. I'm sure he never thought about that one more second in his whole life, and yet it haunted me. What I thought was, if I were a guy, he never would have said that to me. After feeling really embarrassed, I was humiliated, I didn't know what I was doing, and was really resentful. So that was the first time I realized that I would be judged on more than just the results that I got. That even if I smiled or didn't smile, it would make a difference in how people evaluated me. I have spent a long time in the workforce now. I've been in lots of technology companies. As you heard, I've been in human resources for most of that time, and much of it has been about developing leaders. And now I have the privilege and I'm excited to be building my own consulting practice where I'm focused on developing high potential leaders below the executive level, particularly women. That's my focus, and that's where I get the most gratification. So, but it started when I was in my first HR job in a company 30 years ago, maybe, and a female vice president, the only female vice president of this big mainframe computer company, came to me for coaching because she felt so isolated and so alienated from all the other leaders there. So this has been with me for quite a while. And, okay, Madeleine Albright, you know, who was the first female Secretary of State in the United States. The quote I'm going to show you has been in the news a lot lately, but she has been saying this for 20 years. There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Well, the corollary to that is what we're doing here today. There is joy and support in helping women, helping other women. So look around you, because this is your network, which I'm going to be talking about in the next, if you're going to be here for the next session, we are going to be talking about building your network. I have 5 strategies I want to talk to you about, which will help you get the credit you deserve for the great work that you do without having to brag or call undue, uncomfortable attention to yourself. The first, this shouldn't have to be said. You've got to do a great job, but it's important to reiterate it. I'm going to go through them quickly now, and then I'll go back and spend time on each one. We get in our own way. Don't. That's what this means. If you want it, go for it. Don't stop yourself. This has to do with the balance between being respected and being liked. And you will find, as a woman in business, that this is going to be a constant challenge. And you're going to have to find your way to both getting things done and being the kind of person that people wanted to work with. And it's harder for women than it is for men. You've got to cultivate a powerful presence. There's a lot conspiring to prevent women from getting heard. We're going to talk about that too. And finally, I want to share with you a very simple tool that you can use that will help you get the recognition for the real meaningfulness of the work that you do and the results that you get. Okay, master, yes? I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing, so I'm going to come over. there are no handouts, but I'll tell you, the slides themselves don't have a whole lot of words on them, but you're going to want to remember the 5 strategies, okay? So the first is master your job. Charlotte Whitten, who is not only the former mayor of Ottawa, but also the first woman mayor of Ottawa, Canada. Are you sensing a theme here in my quotes? She said something. She said, whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men to be thought of half as good. Luckily, this is not difficult. Which is funny, except it's not really. You shouldn't have to be twice as smart, twice as effective as a man, right? However, there are things that get in the way. There was a study done in 2013. It was at Yale. It was done by a woman named Corinne Moss-Racusin, who has since gone to my alma mater, Skidmore College, to teach. But what she did when she was a postdoc at Yale was she sent out resumes to STEM professors all over the United States, women and men, and they were for a candidate who wanted to be hired as a laboratory manager. These professors evaluated the resume they got and decided, would I be likely to hire someone based on this resume? What would I pay them? Would I be willing to mentor them? The resumes were all identical except for one word at the top of the page. Half of the resumes were for John and half were for Jennifer. Both male and female professors who evaluated one or the other resume answered the questions that they were asked, and what the study showed was that both male and female professors would be more likely to hire John, based on the resume alone, would be willing to pay him $4,000 a year more than they were willing to pay, the others were willing to pay Jennifer, and would be more likely to mentor him as well. So all of this has to do with unconscious bias, unrecognized bias, and unintentional bias. But it's really important to realize that there's more than just your results that can influence decisions around your work. So mastering your job is absolutely critical. But what the John and Jennifer study shows is that it may be by itself insufficient, right? Now, the good news is that there are 2 pieces of good news. After the study was done the first time, the professors who took part were shown the results, and they were horrified. Because these are scientists, right? These are STEM professors, researchers who pride themselves on being objective, looking at things objectively. And they found that they were not being objective. The only thing that was different on half the resumes was affecting the way that they were analyzing this candidate. The other piece of good news was when they did the study a second time, only that time they proceeded sending out the resumes with providing training to the professors who were going to participate, training on gender bias, unconscious gender bias, and awareness of that. And the results were completely different. So again, this was unintentional and unrecognized in themselves. Once they recognized it, they had different results. So we have to train people. We have to be very much aware of this. For myself, if I look at, if I'm critical of something a woman says or does, I ask myself, would I be just as critical if this were a man? And I offer you that question for yourself, too, to test your own biases that you may not be aware of. So what we're told, again, is that we grow up thinking that if we use our knowledge, apply our skills, and have a great attitude, that we will reap the rewards and we will do extremely well. What the John and Jennifer study indicates is that it's not that simple. There's more to it than just that. So how many of you have gone through your life thinking, if I just work really hard, I apply my knowledge, I use my skills, I will get the rewards that I'm due? Good for you. Okay, so what else is there? Well, one thing that's important to know is that we can get in our own way. A study by the Society for Human Resource Management indicates that men will tend to apply for a promotion, a desired promotional job, when they have about 60% of the qualifications that are listed on the job description. Women tend to wait until they have how many percent, do you think? 100%. Yes. And even when the men or women decide not to apply for a promotion, it's for different reasons. The men say they don't want to waste their time. The women say they don't want to, they want to follow the rules. So because they don't have 100% of the qualifications, they don't apply, or they're afraid of failing or being rejected. So as an HR professional, I want to let you in on a dirty little secret. Job descriptions, what a manager puts in a job description is all of the great characteristics and qualities and skills that the incumbent has or had, and all of them that they were missing. So what you get in a job description is an impossible set of criteria. So don't wait until you fulfill 100%. Don't wait. Don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. Don't let this rule following overcome you.
I have a question. Sometimes in skills they're asking for like two years of work experience or more. Do we have to respect these skills? Or, for example, if I have only 2 years of work experience and I see a job offer that requires 5 years of work experience, do I go for it or no? Because,
Do you want it?
If I want it, yeah, well, when I read the description, like, I like it. I'm like, okay, I don't have 5 years of work.
Other than that, can you do it?
Yes. Like okay, so we don't hear about
the most that they can say is no, thank you. We're just so afraid of being told no that we don't go for it. If they require 5 years, it would be hard. They would have to tell you, they would have to say why, what you can learn in 5 years that you haven't learned in 2. And if you can show that you've learned what you need to know in order to step into that role and then learn the rest of it on the job, shouldn't hold you back. Okay? So don't hold yourself, don't back. There's enough holding you back from the outside. Don't do it to yourself, too. Okay? So if you want it, go for it. Find your balance. This is not work-life balance, which is important, but this is a different kind of balance. That little picture, the picture of the little blonde girl on the left-hand side of the screen who is sitting in a chair that's breaking and is going to tumble her off, that's Goldilocks. Because what we find is often we're told we're too this or too that, too tough or too soft, too authoritative or too nice. I've been told both, by the way. And, you can find that you go ratcheting back and forth between those because of the feedback that you get. The idea is to walk and find your own balance between getting things done and being someone that people want to work with. And the reason I'm bringing this up, men have to do the same thing to a certain extent, but it's harder for women because there is a narrower band of acceptable behavior for women. Yes?
Well, I guess keeping in mind the talk that we just heard or whatever, if you're so focused on keeping this balance, you can't really focus on. So my question is kind of how can we strive to change this situation, right? Because if you're focused so much on keeping the balance, you're not going to be as effective in your job, right?
I think you're going to be more effective if you find the balance. Because, let me answer that question. Start answering that question by telling you about another study that was done. This was a Harvard study, and it was done based on it was an MBA, a class of MBA students, male and female students. They were given a case study. So Harvard in particular, but a lot of MBA programs use case studies as a main method of teaching. And the case study was the career story of a woman named Heidi Roizen, who is a Silicon Valley luminary. She has been a successful executive and venture capitalist, founder of companies, etc. So all of that was reflected in the story of her career. Again, half of the students were given this case, and they were told it was the story of Heidi, and half of them were given the same exact case, and they were told it was the story of Howard's career. Heidi's career, Howard's career. What happens, the good news, again, good news, bad news, the good news is that they all thought, both the male and female MBA students thought that both Heidi and Howard were equally competent. So, yay, right? But then they were asked the question, would you want to work with this person or for this person? And Howard was described as a leader. He was described as having high standards. He was described as being goal-oriented, whereas Heidi was described as being pushy, as being demanding, and as being selfish. Remember, they read the exact same case, but the way they interpreted who that person was and would they like to work with that person depended on what the gender of that individual. Because the very same characteristics that were considered admirable in a man were considered pushy, arrogant, and demanding if they were held by a woman. So I think that it's really important to understand how you're perceived and how to find that balance, because we're going to be judged much more harshly. So understanding, are you taking care of the whole organization, your whole team? Do they look to you for that because you're the only woman? You may be too nice and not listened to enough. Or are you on the other end of the spectrum, and are you perceived as someone who gets things done but not particularly likable, too driven, too demanding? It may not be that you have any different characteristics than the man around you, but you're being evaluated differently. There's a personal story I also want to tell that was that was important to me early in my management career. I was actually in my first management job. We were interviewing candidates for my department. It was myself and my director, who was a man, and we were doing the interviews. We, at the time, were using a technique called behavioral interviewing, a methodology. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but used in the very strictest sense, it includes asking each candidate the exact same questions, asking them in a rapid fire, and asking them with a neutral face, and giving no feedback about whether the answer was a good answer or not a good answer. So I conducted my interviews that way. My boss conducted his interviews that way. And we started getting some feedback from the candidates saying about him, he is a tough guy, but I could learn a lot from him. And from me, they were saying, I wouldn't work with that witch, only not witch, for $1 million. So again, we were behaving the same way, we were being evaluated differently. After I finished raging about the unfairness of it, and I did rage because it seemed to me like, I didn't know the result. I didn't know about any of these studies at the time. They hadn't been done. But it just seemed so unfair that I was being judged that way. I then decided to step back and figure, well, this is reality. So how am I going to figure out how to deal with it myself? And what I did in this particular instance is I started smiling more throughout the interview. I started the interview by asking them, how was your drive in? Did you have any trouble finding us? Would you like some water? Whatever, just to put them at ease, and continued to have this, just warmed up the experience a little bit, and it worked for me. I'm not telling you to do things the way I did. I'm telling you, you have to find your own way that's going to be not only doable, hopefully comfortable for you, but you're going to get the results and the reactions that you want. Okay? So I think it's, Ariana was saying everybody has to find their own sleep pattern, pre-sleep pattern of behavior. I think we all have to find our own comfort level within this narrow bound so that we can push out the boundaries. Yes?
I have heard that performance reviews that written or tool sometimes really contradicting things like, you should speak up more, you shouldn't speak so much in meetings and something like that. But how do you really figure out whether, you're told you're too demanding because you really are a very demanding person, or it's because, they have a bias?
Well, undoubtedly, most of us have a bias is the problem. And that's what all these studies have shown, that even well-meaning people, even women, have a bias for men. Okay? So I would just accept the bias part of it as something that is a given. And, there's no formula, but figure out where you get the best results, how you get the best results, develop contacts, trusted contacts who can give you a sense of, whoa, I think you overdid it there, or no, I think you were absolutely right, and keep going that way. We're going to talk about that in the next session as well. So finding your balance is critical. We all have to do it for ourselves. And then make sure you get heard. This is a cartoon. You can see that there is one woman and 5 men. The woman is sitting with her hands folded in front of her, leaning forward, and the leader of the meeting says, "That's an excellent suggestion, Ms. Triggs. Perhaps one of the men here would like to make it." Now, have any of you ever been in a meeting where you or another woman has said something and it's been ignored until a man has said it later? Yes. What did you do?
I'm the tech lead on the team, and my coworker is, he's not North American, so I kind of realize we're from the same culture, and I know that culture is really biased towards women. I said the same thing that someone else more senior than me said later on, and he thought it was an amazing idea, and I just sort of felt like I said exactly the same thing, but you didn't listen to me even though I'm your tech lead.
Okay, so it does happen. It's real. And we have to be sure that we support each other. And when that happens to someone else, you can say, well, no, Yulia said that just 10 minutes ago, right? Someone else can say that. There are other things that you can do to make sure you get heard. And if you haven't seen the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy. Have you seen Amy Cuddy's TED Talk? Okay, great. If you haven't, it's 21 minutes of your time that is well worth spending. It's Amy, Cuddy. And she's got a book out about this now, too. But she talks about a number of things that have to do with not necessarily how you come across to other people, but how you feel in yourself and how that affects how you come across to other people. So she talks about this power stance, which is also called the Wonder Woman pose. And it's where you stand with your feet apart, planted solidly, your hands on your hips and your chin raised. And you stand this way for 2 minutes, she says, before going into an important interview, an important meeting, or when you're meeting with somebody really scary. Now, I'll tell you, I've done this, but more compelling is I work with some groups of women. I'm doing a leadership program with 2 groups of women at a company. It's a global company that makes radiation equipment for cancer therapy. So they are from all over. They've been from all over the world, and I have told them about this power stance. We've watched the Amy Cuddy TED Talk, and I can't tell you how many of them have come up to me it's a 6-month program, over the course of the 6 months to say, you know, I tried that. I went in the bathroom and I did that for 2 minutes, and I felt really silly, even though I was alone, but I did it, and then the meeting went great. So I'm not going to try to explain or justify or even understand how it works, but it does. I have it on authority of all these wonderful, effective, smart women leaders. So what Amy Cuddy says is, let's see if I can remember it without my notes, your mind, your body changes your mind changes your behaviors change your results. And if you watch the video and I've got it mixed up, just forgive me, but that's something like that. Physically, you can change how you feel, and that will change what comes out of your mouth, and that will change the impact that you have. So I highly recommend taking a power stance, getting somewhere by yourself and doing this for 2 minutes, and you really have to do it for that long before a tough meeting that you're anticipating, or a challenging, or a job interview, right? Let's see how we're doing. Good. Okay, almost. Finally, I want to share this tool for you. It's how you can record your accomplishments. Those of you who are working, do you have to do a monthly report for your manager, or a quarterly report, something like that? Okay, well, normally when we do those things, at best, we list the results that we've gotten over the last month or over the last quarter. What often, as a manager, I saw was not even results, it was activities. Yes, I went to these meetings. Well, that doesn't do anything. But if you can say what the results you've gotten, that's a good start. That's the what. And sometimes in those, we will also say not only what did I do last month, but what am I going to do next month? So that's the what next. What we often forget to do is to add the so what. Yes, this is the result I got. These are the results I got. Well, what does that make possible? What does it allow for? What does it mean in the organization? So what does it allow for? What will it enable? What will it make possible? Let's say your what is, I solved a customer problem. Whatever the problem was. I solved a customer problem. And then the important thing is to say, okay, so what does that make possible? What does that allow for? What does that enable in the system, in the organization? So if with our customer, solving a customer problem, what might that make possible? Well, we might be able to sell more to that customer. We might be able to keep that customer as a reference for other potential customers. I could take this solution and give it and send it back to engineering so they can prevent this problem from ever happening again, which will yield a better product for my company. Well, suddenly, answer that solved a customer problem becomes really significant in terms of either money saved or money made for my company. If you can start doing your monthly or quarterly reports with that middle column about what does it allow for, what does it make possible, the so what question, it will make your accomplishments that much more powerful. They will be that much more meaningful to your boss and anybody else who ends up reading them. Okay? I highly advise you to try this. Just add that column to your monthly report. Okay? Okay. So these strategies, again, get really good at what you do. You have to do that to get started. You have to. Don't stand in your own way. If there's something that you want, if there's a position or there's an assignment or there's a task force that you want to be on, if you want to get that kind of visibility, if you want to get visibility with your boss's team, your boss's boss, ask for it. Go for it. Don't let yourself get in your own way. Make sure that you're aware of the balance between being liked and being respected, between getting results and being someone that people want to work with. Make sure that you are testing that with your colleagues. And listen, ask for that 360, ask for that feedback from people around you and listen to the critical parts of it. That's the gift. Make sure you and every other woman who you work with gets heard. And finally, make sure you record your accomplishments. Make sure you record them in a powerful way so that you're not just saying, this is what I did, but you're saying, and this is what it means to the team, to the organization, to the world. That's where the power is. And that's what I wish for all of you. And that's it. That's the presentation. Thank you.